Hello everybody and welcome to Jeff's Baking Blog. Today I'm going to make an apple crumble pie. So it's going to be an apple pie basically, but with some crumble on the top instead of the rolled pastry on the top. So a short crust pastry for the base, the apple filling which will include some ground cinnamon and some double cream will go on top of the base, and then the crumble will go on top of that. So it's not a difficult recipe, but it does take a bit of time because we prepare three separate things: the filling, the crumble and the pastry, and then we leave those to sit and chill in the case of the filling and the pastry for at least an hour. So I'll go on to the ingredients, and for the filling I have here 1100 grams, 2.5 pounds of apples, and I'm using Granny Smiths, which I have peeled, and I've actually cut mine into slices. You could cut them into cubes, you could even cook them down a bit if you want, but I don't think that's necessary. So that's the apples, and I have put in a little bit of lemon juice and tossed them around in the lemon juice to stop them from discolouring too much as they sit there. I have 100 grams, which is half a cup of caster sugar. I have 3 grams, a teaspoon of ground cinnamon, 3 grams, half a teaspoon of salt. I have 21 grams, which is 3 tablespoons of custard powder. If you don't have custard powder, you could potentially use flour. But custard powder is good because it adds a flavour as well as a thickener basically. I have 20 grams of breadcrumbs which I'm going to sprinkle over the pastry once it's in the pie dish. I'm going to use 5 millilitres, 1 teaspoon of vanilla extract, and I'm going to use 120 millilitres, half a cup of double cream. And then for the pastry I have 175 grams, which is 1 cup plus 3 tablespoons minus 1 teaspoon of plain flour. That's based on scooping packed flour into a 250 millilitre cup. I have 7 grams, 1.5 tablespoons of sugar, 3 grams, half a teaspoon of salt, 112 grams, 8 tablespoons of cold butter, and that's going back in the fridge in a minute. And I'm going to use 20 millilitres, 4 teaspoons of sour cream, and 20 millilitres, 4 teaspoons of ice cold water. And then for the crumble topping I have 140 grams, which is 1 cup minus 1 tablespoon of flour, again based on scooping packed flour into a 250 millilitre cup. I have 100 grams, half a cup of light brown sugar, and on top of that I put 3 grams, half a teaspoon of salt. Then I have 85 grams, 6 tablespoons of melted unsalted butter. And that's all the ingredients for that. So the first thing I'm going to do is just to prepare the filling as far as I can go at the moment. And to do that I'm going to sprinkle my sugar onto my apples, and then the salt can go on as well, and the ground cinnamon. And I should say the amount of cinnamon you use, or whether you use any at all, is really a matter of personal preference. If you prefer not to flavour your apple pie with cinnamon, you don't have to do it. So I'm just going to toss that around a little bit. And then I'm going to pour in my double cream as well, and this is going to give a richness to the pie basically. I'm just going to toss it around to get everything coated, and then I'm going to cover that with plastic wrap, and I'm going to leave it to sit for at least an hour, and it will actually sit until my pastry dough has chilled, ready for rolling out. And then the custard powder and the breadcrumbs will be set aside for later. And the next thing I'm going to do is to make the crumble for the top. So I'm going to put my flour and salt and sugar into a bowl, and I'm going to stir those around and just get those mixed through. And if there's any lumps in the sugar, it will break up quite easily as you stir it around. That's fine. So then I'm going to pour in my melted butter, and I'm going to stir that around until it's combined and it begins to clump. So that's good like that. It's clumping, as you can see, and I'm going to put that into the fridge, and I'm just going to chill it until I need it, and the butter will firm up, and we'll have to break it up a bit when it comes out of the fridge ready to put onto the top. So that goes into the fridge, and then we can go on to make the pastry. And before I make the pastry, I just want to say I forgot to put my vanilla extract, the 5 millilitres, into my apple mixture, so I've put that in and stirred it around. So for the pastry, I'm going to put my flour, salt and a little bit of sugar into the bowl, and I'm just going to give that a little blitz, and I'm doing this with the processor bowl of my immersion blender to make it easier. And that's just a quick blitz, that's good enough. So then I'm going to add in my cold butter, and I'm going to process that until it's fairly coarsely ground down into the flour, so it's like a coarse breadcrumb. Some little lumps will be fine. And that's quite good like that. So then I'm going to pour in my sour cream and water, and I've combined the 20 millilitres of sour cream into the water just to make it easier for pouring, basically. I'm going to mix that until it comes together into a dough. And that's a nice dough there. So I'm going to actually tip that out into a bowl, and I'm going to just squeeze it together like that, and then I'm going to put that onto some plastic wrap, and I'm going to flatten it into a disc. Like that. And I'm going to put that into the fridge, and I'm going to chill it for at least an hour. And as the hour comes to an end, or the time comes to an end, if I leave it for more than an hour, I will preheat my oven to 180 Celsius, that's 160 Celsius with a fan, 350 Fahrenheit, and then we'll be ready to roll the pastry out, fill it, top it, and bake our pie. So it's been over an hour now, and my dough has been chilling, my crumble has been chilling, and my filling has been just resting. So it's time to put them all together into our pie. So I've lightly floured my work surface, and I'm going to roll my pastry out to about 12 inches in diameter if I can. Giving it a bit of a turn with each roll, trying to keep it fairly round. And that's fairly good, I think, like that. So I'm going to roll that up onto my rolling pin. And I'm going to drop that into my 9-inch pie dish. And then I'm going to simply lift the sides and lower it down so that it goes in without stretching it too much. And where I have a thin or shortened piece, I'm just going to patch that with a bit of dough like that. And that's in quite well. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck the edge underneath, and if I have too much in one area, I will simply take it off and put it somewhere else if I need to. Trim it as much as I want. And then I'm just going to make a pattern around the edge. I just use one finger and 2 thumbs to do that, basically. But you can make any pattern you wish. And that's good enough like that. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my apples and I'm going to put them into the pie dish. I'm going to do it a bit at a time. And spread them over the base. Like that, and then I'm going to take my custard powder and I'm just going to sift that onto the apples and then put another layer of apples and continue to do the same, basically. And after the second layer, because I intended to put my breadcrumbs on the bottom, but I didn't, so I'm just going to sprinkle the breadcrumbs over. This is just to absorb some of the juices as they leach out of the apples. And the same really for the custard powder. So then I'll put some more custard powder over the top. And the remainder of the apples. So that's the apples on, and I'm just going to sprinkle a little bit more of the custard powder over the top. This will get into the cracks and help to absorb any excess juice. So that's good like that. And then the last thing to do is to add our crumble. So here's the crumble, and I've broken it up a little bit, and where there's any large lumps, as you're sprinkling it over, you can break those up a little bit more as well. So we'll just sprinkle the crumble on the top. And with the crumble on the top like that, I'm just going to gently pat it down. And I'm going to put that into the oven, and I'm going to bake it for between an hour and 10 minutes, or an hour and 15 minutes. I will test with a knife to see that the apple is nice and tender, and it should be in that time, and the crumble has cooked on the top, and at that stage I'll take it out of the oven. Now I should say first of all that I'm going to put this onto a baking tray in the oven, so that if any of the juices come over the side, they will go onto the baking tray and not burn onto the oven. But after an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, when it's cooked, I'll take it out of the oven, and then I have to let it cool completely, and that's going to take a good few hours basically. I'm going to serve this cold. You can heat it up later if you want to, but I'm going to serve it cold, so I need to leave it for maybe 3 hours, 4 hours, even longer. Certainly you can, once it's completely cooled, you can cover it with some plastic wrap and put it in the fridge and leave it overnight if you want to. So I'll be back with you once this is cooled and I'm ready to cut it. It's been 3.5 hours since I took my pie out of the oven, and once it was cooling down, it it domed during baking a little bit, and as it cooled down it settled down quite nicely. So it's now cool, and I've cut a slice. So this is what it looks like. So you can see the pie there, and here's the slice which I've cut, and it looks very good actually, I have to say. So I'm going to have a taste of it. Now you could serve this with ice cream or with whipped cream, but I'm just going to have a taste of it as it is. Very, very good. That apple is so full of flavour, slightly tart, because I use Granny Smith apples, which tend to be quite tart, and I get the sort of the vanilla-y flavour coming through as well from that custard powder and from the vanilla extract. The crumble on top is nice and crunchy, and the pastry seems to be cooked quite well. So it's very, very good. Now I did have some more juice left in my bowl after I'd put the apples in. I could have poured that juice into the pie, but I had a feeling that that would have meant that I needed to cook it for longer than that, so I didn't use that. So I might suggest, and I'll put it in my written recipe, that you might reduce the amount of double cream maybe to 1/4 of a cup instead of 1/2 a cup, just so you're not wasting it. But very, very good indeed. And the other thing just to stress is I put my breadcrumbs in while I was putting the apples in, because I forgot to put it on the base of the pie. That's what I should have done, really, and that's what I will put in the recipe, just for those who want to follow the recipe. So that's going to be it for today. I hope you've enjoyed it, and if you have, please give me the thumbs up below and click to subscribe to my YouTube channel. In the top right hand corner of the screen there will be an eye that you can click on, and that will take you to a link for the recipe, and I'll put a link below the video as well, and I'll be back with another recipe in the very near future. So until then, happy baking.